Hey, what's up guys? We're here to make our fourth and final video in our series of pellets or slugs. I went through 3 different videos already. The first one, it was kind of an overview and a brief intro of what I wanted to cover in this series. Part 2 was a ballistic coefficient advantage. You know what the difference in ballistic coefficient is, and what advantages you would actually see in the real world between pellets and slugs. Whether it was the wind drift at certain distances or the drop in elevation, you know, how much holdover you have to have for shooting at farther distances. That was in video 2. Video 3 was energy transfer. That was a bunch of scope cam footage showing impacts on prairie dogs that I shot with either pellets or slugs at various distances, and we were able to see clearly what the difference was between the impact and energy transfer between slugs and pellets. So if you guys want to see any of those videos, if you missed them, check the description of this video and I'll link all 3 of those videos in that description. You can just click them, it'll take you right there. So on to today's video. I wanted to kind of wrap things up and give some final thoughts and kind of do a catch-all for anything that I missed during the other series. One thing I wanted to point out before I forget, a gentleman commented, he was saying that he got his ballistic coefficient and he entered it into his ballistics calculator and he's shooting accurately out to 100 yards, but past that it changes. The reason for that is a ballistic coefficient does not stay the same, it changes. And what I mean by that is the velocity of whatever projectile you're shooting, pellet or slug, will slow down the farther it shoots. You know, the farther out you go, the slower it's going to get. As the speed drops, the ballistic coefficient changes. It becomes less aerodynamic and it's going to have a lower ballistic coefficient. Some ballistic calculators will compensate for that, but most of them are kind of geared towards centerfire and powder burners, which slow down at a much slower rate than what our stuff would, you know, pellets or slugs would. So that's something to keep in mind. Ballistic coefficient is not a fixed number. Just because you gathered the ballistic coefficient doesn't mean you're going to be able to dial in what the ballistic calculator says and shoot 300 yards and hit a golf ball the first shot. It's up to you to do the field testing and to work out your compensations out in the field, or your corrections, to see what you got to do to hit stuff at that distance. Another thing, we'll get into tuning. I'll talk about that for a bit. Hands down, it's much easier to tune for pellets than it is for slugs. I'm very comfortable with tuning for slugs, and all my setups right now I can shoot slugs out of. But that being said, getting to that point was not easy, and there was lots of times where I spent a lot of money and got frustrated on slugs because I wasn't able to get that accuracy like I'd get with 3 or 4 or 5 different cans of pellets right out of the box. And just one thing to keep in mind, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to tune for slugs than it is for pellets. The cost of slugs has definitely gone down over the last 2 years, and the number of manufacturers that produce quality slugs for hunting or target has gone up. So that'll only continue. That trend will continue, and the more people that enter the slug manufacturing game, the more the prices will get driven down just through competition between manufacturers. If I was to recommend a slug, say you're wanting to get into slugs, you don't know where to start. A good place to start is search YouTube, see if anybody else has your setup that you're shooting, and see if they're shooting slugs out of it. That'd be a good place to start. Same thing with the forums. Search online. Airgun Nation is what I use, and they've got a lot of good information on there. Go up there, and it's free to enter. It doesn't cost anything. They don't sponsor me or nothing. I'm just saying that they have a wealth of knowledge over there, and that might help you find some information that you're looking for. So definitely check that out. If I was to recommend a slug for whatever it is you're using, I would go with the softer slug. The hybrids, they're not too bad. I haven't had the best luck with them. The Nielsen's are a pretty safe way to go. For $20, you get a lot of slugs. If you're looking at 22 caliber, you're getting 375 slugs for $20, and that's pretty safe. That gives you the ability to shoot several different slugs and see if your setup is going to like them or not. And if you do find one that works, there's other brands that make softer slugs that might perform a little bit better, and see if that you can get some more fine tuning out of your setup with that. So if I was to recommend some slugs, the JSB knockouts in 22 and 25 are great. The Varmin knockers have always been great. The Zan slugs are great, and and the NSA slugs are great. So those are all good recommendations. Any one of those, if you guys are willing to try them out, I'd say go for it and see how they perform for you. So let's go ahead and continue, and I wanted to cover a few more topics. Alright, so next I want to talk about the cost difference between pellets and slugs. 2 years ago, even maybe a year ago, slugs weren't quite as expensive, and there weren't quite as many manufacturers producing quality slugs. The NSA slugs, which I have over here, those have always been a great bargain. They perform well if you shoot them fast, above 900 feet per second. They definitely expand, and you get a lot of them for the price. Almost comparable to pellets. If you buy in 22 caliber slugs, and some of them you get some boxes, for $20 you're getting 375 slugs. That's equivalent to what you're getting in your JSB tins, and that makes it a much more viable option to shoot. Some of the other slugs, your performance slugs, the Griffin slugs are probably up there on the very top as far as cost. The varmint knockers, if you guys haven't checked them out, they've come down in price, and unless you're shooting 30 cal, 22 cal, 25 cal, they're very affordable now. Shipping is pretty cheap, and they're high performing. So the cost difference, depending on what you're doing, if you're looking for hunting ammo is going to cost a little bit more than your plinking ammo. So that's kind of a given for any shooting sport. But that being said, prices have come down, and slugs are a more viable option than what they were in the past, especially if you're just trying them out. You don't have to sink $100 in slugs just to see if your setup is going to work with them or not. So you're always going to get more pellets than you are slugs for the cost. But slugs are getting more competitive, and you can get a better deal on them. So if you another thing too I want to touch on, a lot of people, they have a common setup, an Avenger, a Gauntlet, a Marauder, and one person goes out and tries slugs and posts his information, and they didn't shoot for me, and they didn't work. So the other people looking to do their research about what slug to buy, they see that and they think, okay, well, this guy didn't have good results, so I'm probably not going to have good results. My gun just doesn't shoot slugs. Well, you got to try it out, because I'm not going to say that every setup out there is going to shoot slugs, but you won't know until you try. I've had 2 different setups that have not shot slugs like I'd liked, and that's going. I tried multiple slugs, and just couldn't get anything to group. One of those is a Hatsan Nova Star, or the Neutron Star. The other one was a Benjamin Aquila. Now, I didn't try every slug under the sun, but I wasn't about to spend $150 just to buy a dozen different slugs to go through and try them. But if you see a popular slug, the JSB slugs are pretty reasonably priced. The NSA slugs are reasonably priced. Try them out for yourself. That way you can at least cross it off the table, and cross it off your list, and then you know that it won't shoot. But just because somebody says that this platform won't shoot slugs, don't necessarily take it for the truth. Just try it out yourself, and you might be surprised. The next thing I want to discuss is energy transfer. We did already make a video on that, and that was video number 3. But I still get people that'll ask, well, when it comes down to it, and you want to really smoke something or shoot something and inflict maximum damage, what about a 30 caliber Hades pellet compared to a 22 caliber slug? Those are kind of the 2 extremes. I've shot sparrows with 30 caliber Hades, and it just cuts them in half and turns them into hamburger meat, and spreads them all over the place. So that'll definitely transfer energy. On the other end, with a 22 caliber slug, say something like the Zan slugs or the varmint knockers, whatever you hit, you're gonna hear a distinct difference in the pop. It's gonna sound like you shot it with a firecracker, and it blows it up. And they don't necessarily blow up per se, but it definitely expands, and it'll cause more damage per pound than the pellets. So if you're taking a 22 grain slug and a 50 grain pellet, the 22 grain slug is going to hit a lot, is going to punch up above its weight. Which one performs better, it just depends on which target and what kind of results you're looking for. But slugs will definitely give you more thump for your money. Alright, another thing I want to touch up on, maybe I've had this question kind of often, is cleaning the barrels. And do slugs foul your barrels? And do pellets foul your barrels? Do I need to lube the pellets? Do I need to lube the slugs? And I've experimented with all that, and every setup is going to be different. You know, some type of air setup with your Lothar Walther barrel or your CZ barrel. Those are really good quality barrels, and they are your Lands and Grooves barrels. If you're not familiar with what that is, here's a quick picture of a barrel profile. If you're shooting that type of barrel, it's going to have different characteristics than, say, you know, an FX barrel with the smooth twist X. It's just a different type of barrel. LCS has this type of barrel. Some of the day states have that type of barrel, and they're gonna kind of perform differently. In my experience, which most of my experience with the Lothar Walthers, I typically shoot pellets out of them. I've never had to clean them, especially with pellets. You know, they hardly ever foul up, and I've never had any issues. I had a Benjamin Marauder. I got rid of a while back, but oh man, I've had that thing for 8 years. And I shot thousands and thousands and thousands of pellets through there, and I probably cleaned it once, you know, when I first got it, and never had any issues. Now on the slug side, I've had barrels that definitely foul up. One of them being my 30 caliber Slug A liner. So we've already got some more revisions in barrels since then. We got the Superior and the Superior Heavy. But for me personally, shooting slugs out of the Slug A, I had to clean the barrel every 100 or so rounds. I go out and shoot and have my tune set up, and in the middle of shooting, my groups would start to open up. You know, they'd shoot solid, and then all of a sudden I'd start getting flyers, and then my groups would open up big time. And I check my, you know, I have a quality chronograph, a lab radar. My speed stayed the same. I'd use calipers to check my spring settings, my pressure settings, and everything. And I'd go to clean the barrel, shoot another 5 shots to relet it, and I was right back on target like I thought. So some barrels do require cleaning more often when you're shooting slugs. On the other side of that, on the flip side of that coin, my Superior and Superior Heavy liners, I've never had to clean. I have a 25 cal heavy, Superior Heavy, that I've got well over 2,000 rounds, 2,000 slugs specifically, and I've never cleaned it once. The day I got it, I ran some cleaner through it, and then some Ballistic, and I haven't cleaned it since, and I have no issues with it. And it just kind of depends on your setup, and a good way to kind of tell or to experiment with it is if you're shooting and you got your tune dialed in, and for some reason something changes, you know, given that you didn't bump the rifle or, you know, cause any outside impact, you know, yourself, you're shooting and all of a sudden your groups start to get worse and worse. The more you shoot, the worse it gets. First, check your settings to make sure nothing changed. Check your speeds, you know, check your hammer springs. Usually if any of your adjustments change, it'll affect your speed. And if you check all that and it doesn't work, try cleaning your barrel, because it's helped me in the past. Like I said, with my 30 cal, cleaning the barrel and shooting another 5 to 10 shots after it's cleaned to relet it, that worked wonders for me and got my accuracy back. So, do you need to clean your barrels? Yes and no. It depends on your situation. You know, there's so many different setups out there that it's hard to give a definite answer that covers everything. Everything's just so different. So just keep use this as a guideline. If you're not shooting accurately in the middle of your shot strings, you know, just all of a sudden something changes, it could be that your barrel's leaded up. And if you're able to actually look down in there in your barrel, you'll see big smears, you know, wherever the lead is accumulating. And if you have a couple of what they call hot spots where lead accumulates more so than other areas of the barrel, then that's something to pay attention to and kind of count however many shots or however many tins of pellets or slugs you go through before your barrel requires cleaning. And always make sure you use something safe for air rifles. You know, you don't want to use hops in your barrels. It's not necessarily designed to be safe with O-rings and everything else. Ballistic is the best way to go. There's probably some other cleaners, but just make sure that it doesn't affect the O-rings. Okay, we'll wrap this video up. I'm going to give some final thoughts here. As you can see by the selection of ammo that I have, I like pellets and I like slugs, depending on what I'm going to be doing and depending on the environment that I'm going to be shooting in. When I'm shooting long distance and I want to make sure and maximize the efficacy on the shots and how humane it is, I'm going to go with the slug every time. If I'm shooting in the wind, I'm going to go with the slugs every time. Not to say that you can't shoot pellets in the wind, you know, make you a better shot if you do practice, and it's not impossible, but it makes it much easier if you're out doing a job for pest control when you're shooting slugs. If you're shooting out to 100 yards and you don't want to spend a ton of money and invest all the time to tune and, you know, buy extra parts, pellets are the way to go. There's plenty of choices for hunting pellets that transfer great energy onto the target, and as long as you're not having unrealistic expectations about what you want to do to what you're shooting, like I said with the 30 caliber Hades shooting sparrows, that's going to be as messy as it gets. As long as you don't expect that for everything that you shoot, then you're going to be perfectly happy with pellets. And it's going to save you a lot of grief and a lot of money. You'll be able to buy probably twice as much ammo as if you were trying to chase your tail working on a tune for slugs. Any other questions that you guys have, leave them down in the comments section. I want to thank everybody who did leave comments in the past for this video series, because a lot of times other people will scroll through the comments and they might see some of the stats and numbers that you posted up, or saying that you shot pellets this far, or you shoot them this far on the regular, and you shoot slugs out of this setup on the regular. That helps out people sometimes, knowing that other people have tried it, and that might be all the motivation that they need to go and try those slugs themselves or those pellets themselves. So if you have any comments or any questions, leave them in the comment section. If you guys would like to share your info as far as what you guys shoot and what type of setup you're shooting it out of, please by all means leave it down in the comment section, and like I said, it does help out others. But I'm going to wrap it up there, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this series. If you guys are interested, maybe in another, well, we'll give it a while. There's more ammo coming out, more slugs. Setups are able to shoot them faster than they were in the past. And in a year, this video might not be as relevant as what it will be then, and I'll have to revisit it. So if you guys want to see more of this stuff in the future, just drop me a comment, and I'll definitely keep up on stuff like this, because this stuff does interest me. And for somebody who's just starting out, or who's shot pellets all the time and is kind of curious about slugs, this video series was geared to help people like that, so I can share my experience, my personal experience. Not saying that it's the rule. This is just my experience in shooting slugs and pellets, and what my thoughts are and when to use which. So thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for the next week's video.